Assalamu alaikum everyone. Good evening. It's good evening or good afternoon. I'm very much delighted to be a part of this conference, MSF conference here. I would like to start with I'm here because of my teachers. So I would want to give AABIDA ma'am, because she has been my teacher. So I would really appreciate what she has done for us. She has been my teacher. So what we are doing, she's a part of our journey and she has made us to reach here today. So thank you ma'am, thank you so much. It was very delightful, your lecture was very informative. Rakesh sir, thank you for your lecture. So yeah, I'll start with my slide now. Let me introduce myself. I am Nadiya Rashid Malik, but it is a Mrs. Nadiya Rashid Malik now. So I am from the Department of Food and Drugs Administration, Jammu and Kashmir, and we have our organizational chart, as you can see, so that you people also know what this department is all about, because here I'm representing my department. So our mission is to achieve excellence in the formulation of the food safety standards based on modern science and to regulate the food sector in a responsive, efficient and effective manner. So the organizational chart, it starts with our Commissioner Food and Drugs Administration, Shakilur Rahman, and then we have our Joint Commissioner Food Safety, Sanjeev Kumar Gupta, then Deputy Commissioner Food Safety, Shugufa Jalal, Assistant Commissioner Food Safety, then we have various food safety officers, food analysts and assistant food analysts working under them. So I am one of the food safety officers and who is working in the same department. Okay, so I have been invited here for the lecture of risk assessment in food supply chain for consumer safety. Right? As we all are sitting here, we have one thing in common. The common thing is that we all are consumers. So we always want that whatever we eat, we are talking in terms of food, so whatever we eat or whatever we buy for the people at home or for the children at home, that should be safe. Right? So as an entrepreneur or as a customer, I would like that my product, the product that I'm buying or the product that I'm manufacturing, it should be free of any hazard to the human life. Right? So, how we are going to assess the risks and what is the importance of the risk assessment, it is all that we will see in these slides. I would give you an insight about what are the various models and how we can assess the risk in our food supply chain. Right? So the first thing that I will start with is, just see these pictures. Okay, let us have the session as a little interactive one. What is that? Just look at them carefully. Okay, some tacos, we have cantaloupes, we have apple puree, and we have these yellow onions. We have apple sauce, we have cherry tomatoes, peaches, and everything properly packaged, properly labeled. So what do you think could be the problem in these? Does these pictures ring a bell in your mind about some recent events that have happened in November itself, worldwide? Foodborne outbreaks. Okay, so some recent food safety outbreaks. There was breach in the food safety. So these recent outbreaks, they have been reported worldwide in the apple sauces, in the onions, in the cantaloupes, in the tomatoes, and a lot of children were affected, because usually the picture of the apple sauce that I showed you here, it is usually consumed by the babies. Okay, so and the fruits. All of these were a part of this foodborne outbreak. Fine. So, what happened when the foodborne outbreak was reported? All the food items, they had to be recalled from the market. So when these food items, they were recalled from the market, what happened? There was loss of revenue for the company who was manufacturing it, the company who was buying it, or all of the people or all of the industries who were involved from farm to fork. Everybody lost revenue. And then, why did it happen? Non-adherence to the management systems. है ना? So even जब कश्मीर में शादी होती है, दर्श आखना फरासा वाज़स में ज़रूरी था. Management अगर ओरियो गई, then there have been foodborne outbreaks in case of marriage functions also. Various marriage functions they were reported. So we have that non-adherence of management system. It is not as we see. होगा कुछ. It can also cause death of a person. So it can be a huge disaster. It can be catastrophic for life of somebody. It can be disastrous for life of a baby. It can be disastrous for life of an elderly person who doesn't have so much immunity to handle those microorganisms. So then there is the deathbed. If the management systems, they are not adhered properly. So I'm here, there are some links that I've shared. The slide is with ma'am. So there are the links that recent outbreaks were reported in the world in November 2023 itself. There was an outbreak of salmonella. There was an outbreak of lead poisoning in applesauce spreads that I told you. And there was an outbreak of salmonella affecting 11 countries, and one was dead because of listeria outbreak in peaches. So all of these are the recent events that took place in the November. So here are the links. You can anytime you can search them. So it is not that only one food. Applesauce ho gaya to applesauce khana band kar do. No, that's not the point. The point is adherence to management system in each and every affair where food is being manufactured, because food is something that is directly going inside our body. It has direct implication on our health. So these are the names of the foods with which usually outbreaks have taken place. This is the logistics, I think, from 2009 to 2018. We have chicken, 12%, pork 10%, beef 9%, fruits 9%, turkey 8%, vegetable raw crops 8%, eggs 7%, seeded vegetables, dairy, mollusks, fish, grains, beans, sprouts, herbs, and root underground vegetables and others. They have been linked with the outbreaks. And if you see in USA, if you Google, you will see outbreak, just type outbreak in USA. You will see a list of food outbreaks coming out there, and you can say how exponentially, almost we can say exponentially, from 1990 increased. Population is increasing, quantity is being increased, so what is being compromised? Quality systems, they are being compromised. So what we have to do, if you are increasing the quantity, we have to take care of the quality. And taking care of the quality doesn't mean that everything should be under specifications. It means free from any hazard, physical, chemical, biological, nutritional hazard. Free from every hazard. So, things will go wrong. But why things are going wrong? Because there are risks. If, for example, we are working in an industry, supposedly we are working in a beverage industry. Okay? So in the beverage industry, what they use is water. यहाँ पे किसी ने कोका-कोला, पेप्सी वगैरह कहीं पे काम किया, so they might be having किसी भी beverage, fill है, आपने किया है, तो what is the source of water? Groundwater. So what they do is they go for the quality testing of that water, because risks are involved with the water, and even with the things, other raw ingredients things they add into their beverages. For example, we are having a fruit beverage, so water, fruits, we have to procure fruits, we have to get water, so everything has to be tested. What if something goes wrong? What if, चलो water test नहीं किया, चलो यार fruit तो ठीक ही है, दिखने में तो अच्छा लग रहा है. No. We have to adhere to the analysis, we have to adhere to the quality analysis, we have to properly analyze if we are using water, that should be within the specifications, that should not be out of specifications. If we are using fruits, we have to check the microbiological implications. If even one listeria outbreak, for example, happened in peaches, so if this kind of things, they can happen. They can, even one person was dead because of the listeria outbreak. So who is responsible? Because of the breach in the management system. Okay, the risk management system. I think there is a lot of noise coming, so I am not able to focus right. Thank you. So, how can we mitigate the risk? And for that, we have to understand risk क्या है. For that, we have to understand risk क्या है. एक simple example मैं दूँगी. यहाँ पे speaker is coming. I don't know about this place. Okay. So what you did is आपने wires connect करी हैं, but you made sure कि जो बंदा आए उसके पैर में ना अटके और वाकई यहाँ पे खड़ा हो. What if एक speaker आ रहा है, so you have invited someone and he falls because of these wires. It is a risk. Then what you did, you got an extension. So that हम यहाँ से wires नहीं लाएंगे, हम यहाँ से wires लाएंगे. So you mitigated, you identified a risk. Then you mitigated that risk and आपने यहाँ पे extension लगा के यहाँ से तार plug की. ठीक है? So this is a risk. But now we are talking, we'll get back to our topic because we are talking about the risks in food. So what is a risk? If we have to define, it involves the possibility of harm arising from various hazards associated with food consumption. These hazards can include biological, chemical and physical factors. There is something that I have used here, probability into severity is equal to risk. Remember this, that probability into severity is equal to risk. Because when we'll go to the modeling of the risk assessment, at that point of time you will understand what does probability severity mean. Probability into severity is equal to risk. So risk we understood that anything biological, chemical or physical that is coming in the food supply chain and that is reaching the consumer and that can harm the consumer, as well as the image of the manufacturer or anyone who is involved in the supply chain. Now, risk analysis. Basically, risk analysis is the fundamental methodology that is underlying the development of food safety standards. Now, how does Codex Alimentarius define risk analysis? Codex Alimentarius says that is a combination of three things. First, what you have to do, you have to assess the risk. Then, when you know this is the risk, then you have to manage that risk. And after managing that risk, you have to communicate that risk. What does it mean? I identified a risk. मैंने बोला किसी को भी, भाई ये switch जो है इसमें current आती है तो ठीक है, I know this, मुझे current आई, मैं चुप रही and I went, ठीक है. दूसरी चीज़ है, मैं गई और मैंने इलेक्ट्रिशियन को बोला यहाँ पे ऐसे ऑफिस पे यहाँ पे करंट आ रही है तो उस पर कुछ इंसुलेशन वगैरह प्रॉपर कर दो सो दैट करंट नहीं आएगी. और मैंने देखा और मुझे करंट आई, ठीक है मैं चली. एंड आई डिड ऑल्सो, जो भी आ रहा है स्विच के साथ हर एक को करंट लग रही है और सबको जा रहे हैं. तो व्हाट वाज बेटर, व्हाट वुड हैव बीन बेटर, दैट आई केम टू दिस प्लेस, आई असेस्ड द रिस्क. Okay, then I managed the risk. I called an electrician. Then I communicated the risk by room number this. यहाँ पे ये वाला switch है. Don't go near to this because there are chances of an electric shock. So that other people they do not get an electric shock. So that is what Codex Alimentarius is saying, that risk analysis is a combination of three things. That is risk assessment, that is risk management, and how you communicate the risk within your management, okay, to mitigate the risks. So for effective risk analysis, all the three components are integrated successfully. So all the countries, they should have operational food safety system, adequate food laws and regulations, national food control strategy, facility effective surveillance system, inspection and lab facilities, effective education and communication facilities. So all the countries, it's very important that all the countries should have this system. That is why our state, our UT is also having the Food Safety Authority. Okay, I think the Taha also goes for like, knows about audit, right? So that is a part of risk analysis. Okay, so what is risk assessment basically? It says two things, likelihood and severity. It is a science-based approach to assess the likelihood and severity of adverse health effects resulting from the exposure to foodborne hazard. So, likelihood and severity of that hazard and how much frequently you are exposed to that hazard, that is known as risk assessment. Now, risk assessment has 4 pillars. One is the hazard identification. Identify your hazard. Physical, chemical, biological, nutritional. Then hazard characterization, as I told you, physical, chemical, biological, nutritional. Then exposure assessment. That means, for example, if I am making a product, how often do I add vegetable oil in that product? Or how often I am adding SMP into that product? If I am adding SMP in that product, okay, that is skimmed milk powder. If I am adding in the product, but I am buying it from somebody else, I have a supplier. It's a part of supply chain, right? So I am buying the skimmed milk powder. So, but I am not testing it. Neither I am asking for any test from that particular supplier. So what can happen? All the other ingredients, you know, they have a good quality, but that particular ingredient you didn't check. So what will happen? What will happen? SMP की वजह से there will be a hazard. There can be a bacterial, viral, or there can be a physical hazard in that particular product you are making. But what is the exposure assessment? That means how often you are using that product in your that one you procured from the supplier in your final finished product. For example, I am making 10 products and I am only using 0.001% of SMP. That is not possible, but still I am using this. So the severity is very less. But if my base is SMP, but if my base is skimmed milk powder, what is the severity? Severity is very high and probability is also very high. Okay, so this is the exposure assessment. That how much we are using, for how long we are using, or in how many products we are using. Okay, it may be quantitative or it may be qualitative. Now the thing is, if you are saying it may be quantitative, please, I am getting a lot of noise. Thank you. So we have that risk assessment can be qualitative and it can be quantitative. But in case of quantitative, how can I assess that how many people they are going to get harmed because of this product, if there is any problem in this product? That is very tough. So quantitative analysis, risk analysis is very tough. Like a person is dead because of using the X product in Y product. So quantitative is very, the probability of assessing it is very less. So we often don't use it in the site. In the process we can't say, okay, if this happens, if a metal comes in the production line, okay, the person will be dead or something will happen. No, we can't assess it. Okay? So what we usually do in risk assessment, we do it qualitatively. Okay? So qualitatively how we do it, we have a scorecard. High risk, medium risk and low risk. Right? Then we have The risk assessment needs to be a structured approach. It supports decision making and resource allocation, risk management, contributes to better understanding of hazards and food safety, and this approach, it is internationally adopted by European Union and World Health Organization. So, as Codex said that it is a part of 3 risk assessment. We read what is risk assessment. Now we have risk management and risk communication. How we are going to manage the risks? We are going to identify the food safety risks first. After that we have options for managing the risks, its implications, and evaluation of effectiveness of management systems. We identify and analyze the exposure types. We examine the risk management techniques we are going to use. We select the risk management technique. Then we implement this technique and then we monitor the results. So, the point number 4, examine risk management techniques. So, what kind of risk management you need? For example, there is allergen management. You people know about allergens. Peanut allergy होती है किसी को, gluten allergy होती है किसी को, you are well aware of. So, now I'll give you an example. If a company is manufacturing any product that is containing peanut, and then the same company is making supposedly apple cinnamon sauce for babies, but it is not declaring that the line, now it is getting analyzed. This apple sauce cinnamon is getting analyzed, and there are coming traces of peanut in the apple cinnamon sauce. So, which risk has been overlooked? On the same line, you made X product. On the same line, you made apple cinnamon sauce. You made X product containing peanut, and then you made apple cinnamon sauce for babies. Now the babies, you send it in the market, there are complaints of allergies, but on the package you are not giving that it is containing peanut as allergen. Okay? So what has been overlooked here? What was overlooked? The same line used for making 2 things. What has been cleaning? That is a part of risk management. Okay, it's normal सी बात है, साफ अरे नहीं ऐसे ही लगा, but it could have an effect, hazardous या catastrophic effect हम बोलेंगे on a child who is consuming that apple cinnamon sauce and is allergic to peanut. So what has been overlooked? What was not managed? Housekeeping वालों ने clean नहीं करा है. They have not done passivation, no CIP, nothing has been done. So what happened? There are chances of cross-contamination, and because of that cross-contamination, very simple thing, cleaning nahi hui hai. So what would it lead to? Allergies in the babies who are consuming the apple cinnamon sauce. This is just an example that I am giving you. So, but in other case, there is only one product on one line. For example, we have pasteurization of milk. So we are not using any other thing we are not manufacturing any other product on the same line. So we know that CIP is to be done, इतने बजे करना है, इतनी बार करना है, quarterly करना है, दिन में इतनी बार करना है, we know that. But वहाँ पे we don't need allergen management, we don't need this type of risk management there. Okay? So you have to select which type of risk management you need. Okay? So then we have communication. As I told you that I have to tell कि भाई यहाँ पर जो है switch में electric shock है, and I have to take an action, and then I have to mitigate that risk. So what is communication? That is interactive exchange of information and opinions throughout the risk analysis process concerning the risk related factors and risk perception among risk assessors, risk managers, industry, consumers, academia, and other interested parties. Other interested parties are everyone, all the stakeholders that are in the supply chain. So we have the risk assessment and models for risk assessment. Very well known model of risk assessment is hazard analysis critical control points. But now WASP and TASP has already been added to this. Does anybody know about this WASP and TASP? everybody knows. HASP is a well-known management system now. Okay. So WASP and TASP, I'll tell you that there was a need for getting the WASP and TASP because I'll give you an example first so that you understand this better. For example, I am a manufacturer of X product and my product is very famous in the market, and you are manufacturing a Y product and that is not so famous in the market, but we have started at the same time. So we are business rivals. So what you can do is, you can take the bottles, beverages that my X company is making, you can take that and you can add some other things into it and you can sell that into the market. Now, and food safety officer is lifting the sample. Now the sample has been adulterated with X, Y, Z something, A, B, C, D. So वो किस पे आएगा? Manufacturer पे, ठीक है? तो वो manufacturer पे ना आए, उसके लिए we have vulnerability assessment and critical control. Okay. ताकि कोई भी ऐसा harm जो intentionally add किया गया हो अगले बंदे को harm करने के लिए, ठीक है? If you are adding such things, who is going to take care of it? WASP is going to take care of that. That there will be no chances that intentionally an extraneous material that is harmful for the general public is added into your product and sold in the market. So WASP is taking care of that. So the full form is Vulnerability Assessment and Critical Control Point. Then we have TASP. TASP is Threat Assessment and Critical Control Point. Okay? TASP, Threat Assessment Critical Control Point means if it is a misconduct, you can say, or food fraud. A very simple thing is that what happens in some places when we have Diwali around the corner or we have some festivals, Eid and some around the corner. So what happens? We usually see there is a lot of mixing, or we can say adulteration in milk. Sometimes it is not even milk what they are selling. They are mixing some things and they are making artificial milk, I can say. So how that has to be taken care of? With the same brand name, copying something, they are copying, they are counterfeiting, they are copying it. And that is not even milk what they are adding into the packaging. So who is going to take care? What kind of system is going to take care of that? It is tacit. Okay? So we'll read them one by one. Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point is a management system in which food safety is addressed through analysis and control of biological, chemical and physical hazards from raw material production, procurement and handling to manufacturing, distribution and consumption of the finished product. As the name says, hazard analysis. That means it is a management system that will be using some analysis and critical control point and some control of biological, chemical and physical hazards from the raw material production, procurement and handling to manufacturing, distribution and consumption of the finished products. That means farm to fork. Farm to fork में जो भी biological, chemical या physical hazard आ सकता है, वो सारा कौन manage करेगा? HASP. But HASP है क्या? HASP एक management system है. ये कुछ नहीं है, ये सिर्फ steps दिए हुए हैं. These are just steps. 7 steps usually होते हैं, but codex के हिसाब से there are like 12 steps. 5 they are the preliminary steps, and then we have the 7 steps of जो HASP के main steps होते हैं. 7 steps. Okay, so HASP has 12 codex steps. 5 are preliminary and 7 principal steps we have. And what are the preliminary steps? We have to assemble the HASP team. See what happens. If you have a class and you have to study microbiology and teacher from economics is teaching you, is coming in your class, what would happen to that class? You won't read anything, you won't study anything. Because if you have to study microbiology, then a teacher from microbiology should come. So what we have to do is, we have in our industry, on our production line, हमें एक specific लोगों को identify करना है कि this person is responsible for the HACCP plan. It is not like कि A बंदा आएगा, फिर B बंदा आएगा, फिर अगले दिन C बंदा आएगा. No. You have to identify a person who will take care of the hazard analysis critical control point. So we assemble the HACCP team, we describe the product, we identify the intended use to the consumer and the consumers, we construct a flow diagram to describe the process. So it is a process flow diagram. On-site confirmation of the flow diagram, we conduct a hazard analysis. We determine the critical control points, we establish critical limits, we establish a monitoring system, we establish corrective actions, verification procedures, documentation and record keeping. For example, एक beverage company है, या मैं आपको बोलती हूँ ये एक milk industry, dairy industry है. So there are various CCPs, critical control point means अगर ऐसा point जो आप afford नहीं कर सकते overlook करना. अगर आप मिल्क जो ले रहे हैं, जो कोई भी डेयरी इंडस्ट्री हम ले लेंगे, तो वहाँ एक सोर्स से मिल्क नहीं आता है, वहाँ पे 10 सोर्सेज से मिल्क आता है. ठीक है, तो उसके बाद उसको मिल्क जब हम रिसीव करते हैं, अराउंड अबाउट 5 डिग्री सेल्सियस पे हमें रिसीव करना है. अगर उसी टाइम हम वो 15 या 20 डिग्री सेल्सियस पे रिसीव कर रहे हैं, व्हाट इज गोइंग टू बी द आउटकम? इट इज अ सिंपल थिंग, रिसीविंग ऑफ मिल्क at 5 degrees Celsius and we are not receiving it at 5 degrees Celsius, we are receiving it, अरे कोई बात नहीं है, 3-4 डिग्री ऊपर है, क्या हो गया? It is going to spoil the entire product and your production line plus the costs that are incurred in cleaning, the costs that are incurred in your procurement of your raw material. ठीक है? So that is one of the critical point while you are procuring the raw material for your finished good. ठीक है? So this is one of the identification of CCP. So this can be one of the identification of CCP. Then we go for the pasteurization of milk. हम pasteurize करते हैं milk को. Now what we are doing is we are not pasteurizing it for the time that is 20 minutes that is given. Okay? So we are not pasteurizing it for 20 minutes. Okay, we pasteurize it for 10 minutes. Can it be done? No. But if it is done, it is a critical control point. But if it is done, what will happen? Again, there can be spoilage of milk because you are heating the milk, you are activating the microorganisms to a certain degree of temperature, and then what happens? They are becoming active, and because of that, they are more active, and they are spoiling your final product again. So you have to. These are the critical control points in eco both, and then you have to take care of these critical control points. You have to note them down. And then only you can mitigate the risk. Then you take the corrective action. What will be the corrective action? Calibration. If your क्या तुम्हारा pasteurization temperature जो तुम्हारा pasteurizer है, जो उस पे temperature दिखा रहा है, ठीक है? Is it 63 degree Celsius? वहाँ पर, या उससे कम है, या उससे ज़्यादा है, ठीक है? तो अगर तुम्हारा कैलिब्रेशन ठीक नहीं होगा, again you are not calibrated, so calibration is also a part of the control point, critical control point, जो तुम्हें machinery calibrate करनी है, ठीक है? So this is the importance of critical control points and how they can save your product, how they can save your finished good, how they can save your revenue, how they can save your what can I say? How they can save the image of the manufacturer in the market. And one of the important thing is establish documentation and record. Now what was the need for TACCP and VACCP? As I already explained that the need for TACCP and VACCP was to help mitigate food fraud and the risks, intentional risks that could be added or intentional hazards that can be added to the food. Okay, we have the threat assessment and critical control point. It is a strategic approach in the food industry designed to proactively identify and mitigate intentional threats to the supply chain. Okay, so to mitigate intentional threats to the supply chain, we use TACCP, and if you can see on the other side is VACCP, vulnerability assessment. There you will see it identifies and manages the vulnerabilities related to food fraud and economically motivated adulteration. this is one of the important things that WASP deals with, is economically motivated adulteration. Okay? So what is the task? What are the processes? What is the task process? How task is being implemented? Okay? So task reduces the likelihood and consequence of a deliberate attack to protect organizational reputation. Reassurance to consumers and diligence is exercised in protecting the food. Types of threat that task deals with: motivated adulteration, malicious contamination, extortion, espionage, counterfeiting, and cybercrime. So this is a little new things that are approved by GFSI also. So these are the new things that have been added in the risk assessment tools. Okay. So what we mean by motivated adulteration, as I told you, I'm making good money than your product, so I'm motivated to spoil it. Then we have second, malicious contamination. There was this thing, cold drink was mixed or adulterated with mineral acid by some people. Okay? And extortion. There was a policeman, this is a story, there was a policeman who mixed glass in the baby food. See the level of mentality of a person mixing glass in the baby food and then asking for the money from the company that I have adulterated or contaminated the food with the glass. Okay, so I want this amount of money to tell you that which batch is it. Or otherwise they have to waste or they have to recall all the products. So we were only looking to HAS, but we have some new things coming up. So then we have espionage, is use of patented food. For example, I am having a formulation, as you all know, who must be having some experience of internship or something. We have formulas. Okay? जैसे Coca-Cola है, Pepsi है, उनका अपना formulation है that nobody knows. If you are going as an intern, I went as an intern, so I also don't know what is the formulation. So that is patented, nobody can use it. Now what happens if you are going in a company X and you know everything about it, you are getting the formulation and you are sharing it in your own country. That is also a type of espionage. Okay, and task deals with it. If you are copying the same formulation, you can't do it, then it is espionage. Then we have cybercrime. Okay, your product, you're contaminating the process, or then you're going okay, these people, they do like this, and then ask for ransom or ask for money. Okay, they're going on the line and showing some things and then saying, okay, give me money, otherwise I'm going to show it to the world. See how task. There are some examples why task was needed. You can see from these examples. In 1977, citrus fruits from Israel, mercury was injected into them to damage the Israeli economy. So it is also politically motivated. Okay? Then beverages in Iraq was contaminated by thallium. How you can take care of these threats by using this simple process of task. Again, you have to form a task team. Then you have to consider the potential threats. Again, you create a site flow diagram and who could be the attackers. Because you know who is your business rival, your material or your finished good, from where it is going, what are the points, what are the supply chain points where this can be contaminated. Okay, for political games, or we can say for any other game. Okay, then we have identify key staff and vulnerable points. Again, you have to give designated people the responsibility of taking task program ahead, task system ahead. Then consider the sourcing your packaging. So what all has to be taken care of? So you have to take care of the 14 areas. you have to manage the outsourced processing and packaging. For example, I am manufacturing a product, I am giving the raw materials, I am doing everything. But the final packaging is being done by other company. So what I have to do? There is a risk that the company, the standards that I am following, maybe the packaging one that company is not following the same standards, right? So what we have to do? The company shall establish inspection and test procedures for products where the processing or packaging has been outsourced, including visual, chemical, microbiological testing dependent on risk assessment. In VASUP, you studied security. Now what does security mean? The company has to undertake a documented assessment of security arrangement and potential risks to the product from deliberate attempt to inflict contamination or damage. How do you do it? Areas shall be assessed according to the risk, sensitivity or risk, or they shall be defined, clearly marked, monitored and controlled. Then we have foreign body detection and removal equipment. A documented assessment in association with HASP study shall be carried out on each production process to identify the potential use of equipment to detect or remove foreign body contamination. Now we have filters and sieves. They shall be regularly inspected or tested for damage on a documented frequency-based risk. Now, metal detectors and X-ray equipment. Metal detectors and X-ray equipment, they are in the production line. And you have to document that if you are not using a metal detector, why you are not using a metal detector in your supply line or production line, why you are not using it? Because some companies will say, I am using a more effective one, I am using an X-ray equipment. So that would be the reason. You have to give in the documentation, you have to give reason. So that is the proper documentation of the hazard analysis. Okay? So the food safety plan has, you have to list all the potential hazards that are associated with each step. Then a HASP food safety team shall conduct a hazard analysis to identify hazard. Then internal audits. The scope and frequency of audits shall be established in relation to the risks. The frequency of the inspection shall be based on the risks. So the internal audit, supposingly metal detector, we have used metal detector at 2 places in our production line. So now I am not going to use it every time. I am not going to use it every time. If I am making 4 batches, I am not going to use it every time. I am going to use it on the basis of severity and likelihood of a metal contaminant coming into my production line. So you have to see, that is why there is risk assessment scoring, higher risk, medium risk or low risk. In the low risk, you can do it in 12 months. In medium risk, might be quarterly, and in high risk, you have to do it daily. So that is why you say there is a scorecard. We make a scorecard that it is high risk, medium risk or low risk. And internal audits are very important. Then you have management of suppliers or raw materials and packaging. You are getting packaging from an external supplier, you are procuring any raw material from an external supplier, you have to qualitatively analyze or you have to ask for the analytical report from the supplier. Then the approval and monitoring procedures shall be based on risk. The company shall have a documented procedure for the acceptance of raw materials and packaging on receipt based upon the risk assessment. As I told you, there should be an analytical report with the raw material that you are procuring from the outside, okay, supplier or anyone else. So what do we get from here? Everyone is a manufacturer, everyone is a consumer. If you are working in a company, everyone, like the supplier is a manufacturer, you are manufacturing, you are also a manufacturer, and if there is somebody else in the production line, we can say, okay, that person is also a manufacturer. So all of the manufacturers that are in the supply chain till it reaches to the consumer, everybody has to take care of these risk assessment factors and risk assessment management systems, we can say. Okay. I would give you, these are the pest controls and how allergens are. I already told you that, if you are making 2 things, a peanut product and the other product, apples or cinnamon for kids, but you are not cleaning it. So the risk is a small somebody's life. So cleaning is also one of the factors, okay, that you have to see. Then product authenticity, claims and chain of custody. That if I am giving the product to a distributor and distributor is giving it to the supplier and supplier is giving it to the shopkeeper, हर जगह पे there has to be authenticity. Okay, that supplier को देखना है distributor ने मुझे जो product दिया है authentic है कि नहीं, shopkeeper को देखना है supplier जो है उसने मुझे जो product दिया है authentic है कि नहीं, वो copy तो नहीं है. So this is where हर एक supply point पे you have to see कि मेरा जो product है, जो manufacturer has to see कि उसका product जो है वो कहीं पे कोई और प्रोडक्ट तो नहीं ला रहे उसके नाम पे मार्केट में. सो ही हैज टू चेक इट. सो फ्रॉम फार्म टू फोक, at every point in the supply chain you have to take care of the authenticity of the product, that it is not being copied, there is no intentional adulteration or there is no intentional harm to your product so that your reputation is harmed. ठीक है? So these are the senior management commitments and continual improvements. You can, I have these slides, so these are from the BRCG. They are the regulations that we have, globally recognized regulations, so you can read it from there. Now we have one more type of risk. We have intrinsic risk and inherited risk that we already discussed. What is intrinsic risk? Intrinsic risks are usually that may be naturally present in the product. Maybe allergen, okay? Maybe we have gluten, that is already present, but some people they are allergic to it, okay? So that is intrinsic risk. What is inherited risks? Inherited risks, they can come through the supply chain, such as contamination, quality issues, or you are not adhering to the safety standards by the suppliers, upstream suppliers. So, I have an example. There is a hazard. I have identified a hazard. We have like HASP, I am giving you an example, okay? So, because in the risk assessment modeling, we might need this. So, I have identified the hazard. What is the hazard? E. coli 0157 is the strain, so hazard is E. coli. So what is the probability of surviving because of inadequate target temperature? Medium probability. What is the severity? High. Risk rating? High risk. Control? So what we need to control is temperature and time. In this case, there is a clear line between hazard identification, risk assessment and management. So we have identified the hazard is E. coli. We know that we can get rid of it at high temperatures, very high temperatures. So what we have controlled? Time temperature combination. The risk is mitigated, it is done, we are done with the risk. So there is a clear identification, we have identified hazard, we have assessed the risk and then we have managed it. Then we have an example of the prerequisite program we have in like PRP's calibration. So it is one of the prerequisite program in ISO 22000, I think so. This is one of the things that is very important, that is calibration. So here, device is temperature probe. PRP, what is the prerequisite program for this temperature probe? It is that it should be properly calibrated. What is the probability that it is not calibrated? Medium. What is the severity? It is high. How can you control it? Frequency and how frequently you are calibrating your instrument. So uske liye calibration certificate aata hai that you have to obtain from where you have bought your equipment from. In case of the risk assessment, it is based on the failure and effect model. The probability of the failed calibration status combined with inherent risk of exposure to the consumer. That means अगर cooked meat RT जो ready to eat food होता है, उसमें if the calibration where it was cooked, the calibration was not proper, then there are chances of strain. There may be strains of salmonella, there may be strains of other bacteria that can go into your finished product, and that can be a problem to the consumer. So there is risk assessment model, how you can construct it, but I won't go through this, but I will simply make you understand this. Okay, this is how you can make a risk assessment model in your company. Okay, this is the last slide. Okay, so I can feel that, okay, this is the last slide, risk assessment model. I would go through that, the whole thing. So I told you there was a slide, risk, that probability into severity is equal to risk matrix. Did you study matrix? So you know this. Like if there is severity score at 3 and there is a severity, there is a probability, a high probability that is at 3. So what is going to be the risk? High risk. But what is the number? Number is 9. That means number 9 corresponds to high risk. Okay? Here severity into probability is equal to risk. That is a risk matrix basically, how you have to model it. Okay? Then if there is failure in the activity being audited, it is likely to happen often frequently. That means if you have audited your process, but you have not audited it so well, at that point of time, the risk is going to be frequent in your production line, in your supply chain, or in your finished product. Then failure of the activity being audited can happen, but always the auditing is not like a failure. So at that time we have that medium risk group. Failure of the activity being audited is unlikely to happen, rare. That means very low risk, very low probability, because we are doing everything okay. We are auditing, we are calibrating, we have pest control, we have everything in place. HACCP, PAS, we have everything in place. So the probability is going to be very less, 1, and severity is going to be 1. So risk is going to be 1, that is low risk. Okay, so this is how you calculate in the risk assessment matrix, how you calculate how high or low the risk is going to be. Okay, so this is how you can put your results, a risk assessment model, and how you can put your results here. Okay? So this is what I have already explained. Okay, this is the part-wise explanation. Any questions in this slide? Thank you so much. I hope